Marcus thought he was just installing a simple electrical outlet in his garage. He never imagined it would become a weapon. When his entitled neighbor Karen began stealing his electricity night after night to charge her pristine white Tesla. Laughing in his face when confronted, Marcus felt something dark awaken inside him. The retired electrician's fingers trembled as he rewired the outlet, knowing that the next time Karen plugged in her precious car, she'd get far more than she bargained for. The smell of burning circuits would be nothing compared to the burn of justice served Escalation. Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stepped back to admire his handiwork. The 240-volt outlet gleamed against the garage wall, its installation marking the completion of a project 3 months in the making. At 62, Marcus had spent 40 years as a master electrician before retiring, and old habits died hard. Every wire was perfectly seated, every connection tested twice. This outlet would power his new woodworking equipment, the lathe he'd been eyeing for years. Finally purchased with his retirement bonus. Beautiful work, honey. Sarah's voice carried warmth as she approached with 2 glasses of iced tea. After 37 years of marriage, she still appreciated his craftsmanship, even if she didn't understand the technical details. Though I still don't know why you needed such a heavy-duty outlet for a hobby. Marcus accepted the tea gratefully, the July heat making even the shaded garage feel like an oven. This isn't just any hobby equipment. The lathe draws serious amperage. Regular outlets would trip the breaker constantly. Sarah squeezed his shoulder. Well, I'm proud of you for pursuing this. You've earned some fun after all those years of crawling through other people's attics. The peaceful moment shattered as a pristine white Tesla Model S glided silently into the driveway next door. Marcus felt his jaw tighten involuntarily. Karen Whitmore had moved in 6 months ago, and their interactions had been ... challenging. She was a corporate lawyer, recently divorced, with an attitude that suggested the world owed her something. Her Tesla was her pride and joy, and she never missed an opportunity to mention its environmental benefits or cutting-edge technology. "Oh, look who's home," Sarah murmured, her tone carefully neutral. She'd learned to bite her tongue around their new neighbor after several uncomfortable encounters. Karen emerged from the car wearing a tailored business suit despite the weekend, her blonde hair pulled back in a severe bun. She spotted them through the open garage door and strode over with purpose, her heels clicking against the concrete. "Driveway Marcus." Perfect timing. Karen's smile was sharp, predatory. "I've been meaning to talk to you about something. I noticed you installed a high-voltage outlet." She gestured toward the garage. "I don't suppose you'd be willing to let me use it occasionally. My Tesla's been struggling with the standard outlet, and the charging station installation is back." For months, Marcus felt Sarah's warning hand on his arm, but he managed a polite smile. "I appreciate you asking, Karen, but this outlet is specifically for my woodworking equipment." The power draw calculations were precise. Karen's laugh was dismissive. "How often are you really going to use some hobby equipment? I'd only need it a few nights a week, maybe during peak usage hours when my home charger is slow. I'm sorry, but no." Marcus's voice was firm but respectful. "The electrical load from your Tesla could interfere with my equipment. Plus, there are liability issues." "Liability?" Karen's expression shifted, the mask of friendliness slipping. "Marcus, we're neighbors. Can't you just be reasonable? It's not like I'm asking for a kidney." Sarah stepped forward, her voice gentle but clear. "Karen," I think Marcus explained his position. "Perhaps you could speak with an electrician about installing your own outlet." Karen's eyes flashed with something ugly. "Right, of course. The little homemaker thinks she understands electrical work." She turned back to Marcus. "Fine, be selfish, but don't come crying to me when you need a favor." She spun on her heel and stalked back to her house, leaving Marcus and Sarah standing in uncomfortable silence. "Well, that went well," Sarah said finally. Marcus shook his head. "She'll get over it. People like Karen are used to getting there. But she'll find another solution." He couldn't have been more wrong. 3 days later, Marcus woke at 2:47 a.m. to the subtle hum of electrical equipment. Something was wrong. He'd developed an ear for electrical sounds over 4 decades. And this wasn't normal household current. This was heavy draw, sustained load. Slipping out of bed without waking Sarah, Marcus padded to the window overlooking the garage. In the pale moonlight, He could see a thick orange extension cord snaking from his garage across the property line. His heart hammered as he followed the cord's path to Karen's pristine Tesla, plugged in and charging. "That fucking bitch," he whispered, then immediately felt guilty for the language. But the violation was complete. Karen had somehow accessed his garage and was stealing his electricity. Marcus threw on clothes and crept outside. The garage's side door, the one he never locked because, frankly, who would break into a suburban garage, stood slightly ajar. Inside, he found exactly what he'd feared. Karen had somehow obtained a high-amperage extension cord and plugged it directly into his new outlet. His outlet, his electrical work, his power. The Tesla's charging indicator glowed smugly in the darkness. Marcus stood there for 10 minutes, rage building like pressure in a faulty transformer. She'd violated his property, stolen his electricity, and apparently felt entitled to do so after he'd politely declined her request. The extension cord was professional grade. This wasn't some desperate act of necessity. This was calculated theft. He unplugged the Tesla and coiled the extension cord, leaving it on Karen's doorstep like a calling card. Then he locked the garage and returned to bed, but sleep was impossible. His mind raced with electrical possibilities, and none of them were charitable. The next morning, Karen's performance was Oscar-worthy. She knocked on their door at 7 a.m., still in her silk pajamas, eyes wide with innocent confusion. "Marcus, the strangest thing happened. I found this extension cord on my doorstep, and my Tesla's battery is completely dead. I don't suppose you saw anything unusual last night?" Sarah started to respond, but Marcus stepped forward. "Karen, you plugged that cord into my outlet and stole my electricity. We both know it. Stole." Karen's voice rose in pitch, hitting that perfect note of wounded disbelief. "Marcus, I would never. How could you even suggest the cord was connected to my outlet? Your Tesla was charging. Pretty simple math." Karen's facade cracked for just a moment, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. Then the mask snapped back into place. "I have no idea what you're talking about. Maybe someone else used your outlet as a prank. Teenagers, maybe. But to accuse me of theft." She shook her head sadly. "I'm disappointed in you, Marcus. I thought we were better neighbors than this." She turned and walked away, leaving Marcus standing in his doorway with the bitter taste of helpless fury. "She's lying," he told Sarah. "I know, honey, but what can we do? We can't prove anything." That night, Marcus installed a padlock on the garage. Problem solved, he thought. He was wrong again. 2 nights later, the hum woke him again. This time, when he checked the garage, he found the lock had been cut clean through with bolt cutters. Professional work. The Tesla was charging again, smug and silent in the moonlight. Marcus unplugged the car and installed a more expensive lock. Karen cut through that one, too. He installed a hasp and padlock on the outlet itself. Karen somehow picked the lock or had it copied. Each escalation brought a new violation of his property and his boundaries. The worst part was Karen's behavior during daylight hours. She'd wave cheerfully from her driveway, comment on the weather, even brought over cookies as a peace offering for their misunderstanding. The cognitive dissonance was maddening. By day, she was the picture of suburban normalcy. By night, she was a thief. "Call the police," Sarah urged after the 5th incident. Marcus considered it. But what would he say? A neighbor was stealing electricity. Even if they believed him, even if they caught her in the act, what was the penalty? A misdemeanor at best, a slap on the wrist. Karen could afford any fine they might impose, and she clearly felt entitled to his power. No, the police weren't. The answer? This required a different kind of justice. Marcus began researching, not just electrical codes and safety standards, but the specific charging requirements for Tesla vehicles. He studied the Model S's electrical system, its charging protocols, its built-in safeguards. He learned about ground fault about voltage regulation, about the delicate dance between charging equipment and vehicle electronics. And slowly, very slowly, a plan began to form. 3 weeks after the theft began, Marcus made a trip to the electrical supply store, not his usual supplier somewhere across town where nobody knew him. He purchased components carefully, paying cash, keeping receipts separate. Everything was legal, Everything was available to any licensed electrician. But the combination would be Karen's education in the consequences of theft. Marcus worked on the modification for 2 days, testing each component obsessively. The beauty of the system was its selectivity. Normal electrical load. The scream shattered the pre-dawn silence at 3:47 a.m. Marcus jolted awake, heart hammering as Karen's voice tore through the night air. Not the controlled shriek of anger he'd grown accustomed to, but something raw and primal, genuine terror, mixed with disbelief. What the fuck? Oh God, what the fuck? Sarah sat up beside him, grabbing his arm. Marcus, what, stay here? Marcus was already pulling on his robe, but his movements were calm, deliberate. He'd been waiting for this moment, and now that it had arrived, a strange peace settled over him. Outside, the smell hit him first ozone and burned plastic, the acrid stench of overloaded electronics. Then he saw Karen, illuminated by the Tesla's hazard lights, which were flashing in a rapid, panicked sequence. She stood frozen beside her car, staring at the charging port with the expression of someone witnessing the impossible. The Tesla's charging port was melted, not just damaged, completely destroyed. The elegant white plastic had warped and blackened, creating a grotesque crater where the charging interface used to be. Wisps of smoke still rose from the wreckage, and the car's computer system was cycling through error messages in multiple languages, as if the vehicle itself was screaming. Karen Marcus's voice was steady, almost concerned. "Is everything all right?" She spun toward him, her silk pajamas wrinkled, her perfect hair wild. "Your fucking outlet. It destroyed my car. It almost killed me. My outlet." Marcus approached, slowly, examining the scene with professional interest. "I'm sorry, but I don't understand. This outlet is specifically for my woodworking equipment. Why would your Tesla be connected to it?" Karen's face cycled through several emotions: rage, fear, desperation, and something that might have been the first glimmer of understanding. The extension cord, ... It was just ... Just what, Karen? Marcus's voice remained perfectly level. Just stealing, just trespassing, just destroying my property lock after lock until you could take what you wanted. The fight went out of her like air from a punctured tire. She looked at the ruined charging port, then at Marcus, then at the smoldering extension cord that lay coiled like a dead snake beside her car. The cord's industrial-grade plug had been fused into an unrecognizable mass of metal and plastic. "You did this." Her voice was barely a whisper. "You sabotaged your own outlet. I protected my property." Marcus examined the Tesla's damage with the same clinical detachment he'd once used to diagnose electrical problems. This outlet is designed to detect unauthorized usage. When someone attempts to steal electricity, it responds accordingly. That's impossible. Outlets don't work that way. Marcus smiled, and there was something terrifying in its gentleness. "Karen, I spent 40 years as a master electrician. I've forgotten more about electrical systems than most people ever learn. Did you really think you could steal from me indefinitely without consequences?" Sarah appeared at Marcus's side, having thrown on her robe. She took in the scene: the destroyed Tesla, the smoking extension cord. Karen's stricken her face went pale. "Oh my God, Marcus, what did you do?" "I solved a problem." Marcus's voice was matter-of-fact. "Karen has been stealing our electricity for weeks, breaking into our garage, cutting through locks, violating our property night after night. I simply installed a system that responds to theft." Karen's lawyer training finally kicked in, overriding her shock. "This is assault. You deliberately created a dangerous condition. I could have been electrocuted, could you?" Marcus tilted his head, genuinely curious. "The system is designed to surge the vehicle's charging system, not harm the operator. Very precise work, actually. The charging port acts as a buffer, absorbing the surge and protecting the person, though I imagine it's quite expensive to repair." "You're insane." Karen's voice cracked. "I'm calling the police. Please do." Marcus gestured toward her house. "I'm sure they'll be very interested to hear about your repeated theft, your destruction of my property, and your trespassing. Did you know that in our state, theft of utilities is a felony if the value exceeds $500? I've been keeping track of your usage, Karen. We passed that threshold 2 weeks ago." Karen stared at him, her mind racing through legal implications. Marcus could see the calculation in her eyes. The cost of replacing the Tesla's charging system versus the potential criminal charges, the damage to her legal career versus the satisfaction of revenge. You can't prove I took anything. Marcus pulled out his phone, scrolling to a video app. Actually, I installed security cameras. After the third theft, would you like to see the footage? You're quite recognizable, even at 3 a.m. The color drained from Karen's face. You're bluffing. Marcus turned the phone screen toward her. Even in the pre-dawn darkness, the video was clear. Karen cutting through his garage lock with bolt cutters, connecting the extension cord, plugging it into her Tesla. The timestamp showed 2:33 a.m., just over an hour ago. I have footage from 8 separate incidents, Marcus said conversationally, each one showing clear intent to steal utilities. Each one showing escalating property damage as you defeated security measures. Each one documenting your calculated, premeditated theft. Karen's breathing became shallow, rapid. The legal implications were cascading through her mind: criminal charges, professional sanctions, insurance complications. The Tesla's repair costs alone would be substantial, but the legal fees, ... What do you want? The words came out broken, defeated. I want you to understand consequences, Marcus replied. For 3 weeks, you've acted like the world owes you something. You've taken what you wanted, violated boundaries, destroyed property, and lied about it. Tonight, you learned that actions have reactions. Sarah touched Marcus's arm, her voice urgent. Honey, maybe we should call the fire department. Sure, there's no electrical hazard already handled. Marcus gestured toward the Tesla. The surge system includes automatic shutoffs. No ongoing electrical danger. Though I'd recommend having the car towed rather than attempting to drive. The charging system failure, probably compromised other electronics. As if summoned by his words, the Tesla's dashboard began cycling through a Christmas light display of warning indicators. The car's computer was clearly struggling with the cascade of system failures triggered by the charging port destruction. Karen stared at her ruined vehicle, then at Marcus. You destroyed a $60,000 car over electricity bills. No, Marcus corrected gently. You destroyed a $60,000 car by repeatedly stealing electricity after being explicitly told no. The outlet simply responded to criminal activity exactly as designed. This is crazy. This is ... This is... Karen struggled for words that could encompass the situation. You can't just booby-trap your own property. I didn't booby-trap anything. I installed a security system that protects against utility theft, perfectly legal, well within electrical codes, and specifically designed to target criminal activity. Marcus's voice remained maddeningly calm. The system only activates when it detects the specific electrical signature of theft combined with unauthorized access. Your Tesla triggered both conditions simultaneously. The beauty of Marcus's system was becoming clear to Sarah, despite her horror at the situation. He'd created something that responded only to Karen's specific criminal behavior. Any legitimate use of the outlet would work normally, but Karen's repeated, calculated theft-triggered consequences. You're going to pay for this, Karen snarled, some of her fight returning. My insurance will sue you into bankruptcy. I'll file criminal charges. I'll destroy you. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. That's certainly your right. Of course, your insurance company will probably want to understand why you were charging your vehicle with stolen electricity through an extension cord at 3 a.m. That might affect your coverage. And criminal charges work both ways. I have video. Evidence of 8 felony thefts. My electrical work is completely legal and up to code. He paused, studying Karen's expression. But there is another option. Karen's desperate hope was pathetic to witness. What you pay for the electricity you've stolen. You reimburse me for the locks and security equipment you destroyed. You sign a written agreement never to enter my property again. And we both forget this ever happened. Sarah stared at her husband in amazement. Even now, even after weeks of calculated revenge planning, he was offering mercy. Karen's mind raced through the mathematics of survival. The Tesla's repairs would cost thousands. Legal fees for fighting criminal charges could reach 5 figures. Professional sanctions could end her career. Versus paying for some electricity and buying new locks. ... How much? Her voice was barely audible. Marcus pulled out a notebook, consulting figures he'd calculated weeks ago. Electricity usage, calculated at commercial rates due to the theft circumstances, comes to $847. Property damage to locks and security equipment totals $312. Call it $1,200 total, and we're even $1,200. Karen's voice cracked with relief. That's all. Marcus smiled, and for the first time in weeks, it was genuinely warm. Karen, I never wanted to hurt you. I just wanted you to stop stealing from me. If you'd asked politely, I might have worked something out. If you'd offered to pay for the electricity, we could have shared the outlet. But you chose theft ends. 3 days passed in blessed silence. Karen's Tesla had been towed away on a flatbed truck, its blackened charging port drawing stares from neighbors who whispered behind curtains. The cash appeared in Marcus's mailbox Tuesday morning, crisp $100 bills wrapped in a handwritten note for electricity and damages. KW, no apology, no acknowledgement of wrongdoing, just payment rendered like a business transaction. Marcus had expected this. People like Karen rarely experienced genuine remorse. They simply adapted their strategies. But he'd given her a chance at redemption, and for 3 peaceful nights, it seemed she might have learned. He should have known better. Thursday evening, Marcus was in his garage organizing his new woodworking tools when Sarah called from the kitchen window. Honey, you need to see this. He emerged to find Karen standing in her driveway beside a gleaming black Tesla Model X Nor. Larger, and clearly more expensive than her destroyed Model S she was directing to men in work clothes as they installed something near her garage. Tesla Powerwall, one of the workers, explained when Marcus approached. Battery backup system. Stores energy from the grid during off-peak hours, then feeds it back during Heidemann periods. Your neighbor's going completely off-grid for vehicle charging. Marcus watched the installation with professional interest. The Powerwall was impressive, technology expensive, sophisticated, and completely unnecessary for Karen's actual needs. This wasn't about energy independence. This was about never having to ask anyone for anything again. Must be costing her a fortune, Sarah murmured. $20,000 minimum, Marcus replied. Maybe $30,000 with the upgraded inverter system. But it wasn't the cost that concerned him. It was Karen's expression as she supervised the work. She kept glancing toward Marcus's garage with the same calculating look she'd worn during those weeks of theft. The same expression that said she was entitled to whatever she wanted, whenever she wanted it. The installation completed just after sunset. Karen made a show of plugging her new Tesla into her own charging station, the satisfaction on her face visible even from across the property line. She'd solved her immediate problem, but Marcus could see deeper currents at work. This wasn't resolution, it was escalation disguised as independence. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong, like the electrical tension that builds before a transformer blows. He'd learned to trust those instincts over 4 decades of troubleshooting, and they were screaming now. At 2:15 a.m., he gave up on sleep and padded to the kitchen for water. That's when he noticed the glow from Karen's backyard, not the usual porch lights, but something brighter, more focused. Workshop lighting? Curious despite himself, Marcus slipped outside. Karen's garage was illuminated like a surgical theater, and through the open door, he could see her bent over a workbench. Marcus moved closer. Staying in the shadows, what he saw made his blood run cold. Karen had disassembled one of his destroyed locks, the expensive one he'd installed after her second theft. She'd somehow obtained bolt cutters, lockpicks, and what appeared to be a portable angle grinder. The workbench was covered with components from various security devices, and she was methodically studying each mechanism. She wasn't just learning to defeat locks. She was reverse engineering them. Interesting hobby for a lawyer, Marcus said. Quietly, Karen spun around, nearly dropping the lock mechanism. For a moment, her carefully constructed mask slipped, revealing something feral underneath. Then she smiled, and it was worse than her anger. Marcus, you startled me. I was just ... curious about how these things work. Amazing craftsmanship. She held up the destroyed lock with mock admiration. You really made me work for those few kilowatts. That's private property you're dismantling. Property you threw away after I paid for the damage. Karen's voice carried a lawyer's precision. Abandoned property becomes available for salvage. I'm just researching security systems, professional development. Marcus stepped into the light, studying her workspace. Along with the lock components, he could see building schematics, property surveys, and what appeared to be electrical diagrams. His electrical diagrams, somehow obtained and annotated with her own notes. Planning something, Karen, just being prepared. She began casually covering the papers with shop rags. You taught me an important lesson about consequences. Now, I'm learning about ... prevention. The threat was delicate, but unmistakable. Karen wasn't accepting defeat. She was studying her opponent, preparing for the next round. The power wall wasn't about independence. It was about having the resources to wage a longer war. Marcus felt that familiar electrical tension building again, but this time it was inside him. He'd offered Karen mercy, given her a way to walk away. With dignity intact, instead, she'd chosen to treat their conflict as a puzzle to be solved, a system to be hacked. I should get back to bed, Marcus said carefully. Sarah worries when I wander around this late. Of course, sweet dreams, Marcus. Karen's smile was razor-sharp. See you around the neighborhood. Marcus returned to his house, but sleep was impossible. Karen's midnight research project had confirmed his worst fears. She wasn't planning to coexist. She was planning revenge. The next morning brought validation. Marcus discovered scratches around his electrical meter, subtle but unmistakable. Signs of tampering. Someone had attempted to access the main power supply to his house. The work was amateur. Karen might be studying security systems, but she was still learning, but the intent was clear. She'd moved beyond theft to sabotage. Marcus spent Friday afternoon at the electrical supply store, but this time he wasn't hiding his purchases. Let Karen research all she wanted. She was about to learn the difference between studying electricity and mastering it. Saturday evening, Marcus was in his garage installing his final modification when Sarah joined him with coffee. Should I? Ask what you're working on. Karen's planning something bigger than theft this time. I can feel it. Maybe we should just move. Sell the house. Find somewhere peaceful, running away. Marcus shook his head. Sarah, I've spent my entire career solving problems that other people created. Bad wiring, overloaded circuits, dangerous installations. Karen is just another kind of electrical problem. She's not a circuit, Marcus. People respond to reason, Sarah. They learn from mistakes, show remorse, change their behavior. Karen studies my defenses like she's planning a military campaign. That's not a person, that's a predator. Sarah studied her husband's face, seeing something she'd never seen before. Not anger. Marcus had moved past anger. This was the cold calculation of an expert solving a complex problem. What are you planning, Justice? Marcus said simply. Karen wants to escalate. Fine, but she's about to learn that some problems solve themselves. The lesson began at 11:47 p.m. Marcus was reading in bed when the power went out. Not just there. The entire neighborhood plunged into darkness. Through the bedroom window, he could see emergency lighting flickering on in houses across the subdivision, except for Karen's house. Karen's house stayed dark. 5 minutes later, the power returned everywhere except Karen's property. Her house, her garage, her precious power wall system all remained dead, while the rest of the neighborhood resumed normal electrical service. Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Fix IT now, or I call the police, he replied. Call them, tell them you tried to sabotage my electrical meter and somehow fried your own system instead. The response came quickly. You did this? Sounds like you have a serious electrical problem. Probably should have hired a professional instead of trying DIY electrical work. Silence. Marcus smiled and returned to his book. Outside, he could hear Karen's voice rising in frustration as she tried to troubleshoot her dead electrical system with a flashlight. The beauty of his final modification was its simplicity. Anyone attempting to access his electrical meter would trigger a feedback loop that overloaded their own system while leaving his completely protected. Karen had tried to sabotage his power and instead had destroyed her own. The next morning brought a parade of electricians to Karen's house. Marcus watched from his garage as 3 different contractors examined her electrical system, each one shaking their head in bewilderment. The power wall was fried. The main electrical panel was destroyed. Even her Tesla charging station was melted. Slag. The estimate for repairs exceeded $40,000. By noon, Karen appeared at Marcus's door. She looked like she hadn't slept, her perfect hair disheveled, her lawyer's composure completely shattered. "You destroyed my entire electrical system."
Did I?
Marcus examined his own meter, his own perfectly functioning electrical panel. "Everything looks normal on my end." "Did you contact your insurance company? They're sending an investigator." Apparently, the damage pattern suggests. Karen's voice trailed off as she realized the trap she'd walked into. "Suggests what, Karen?" "Amateur electrical work. Improper installation. Possibly deliberate sabotage of utility infrastructure." Each word came out like a confession. "They're treating it as potential ins,"